My guest at this time, again for day 2 back, 2-time WWE Hall of Famer, 16-time World Heavyweight Champion. Woo! It's the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. Rick, wow, thank you for coming back and talking to me a little bit more about your amazing career.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, well,
Appreciate all always.
Yeah, dude. Well, we covered a lot of ground yesterday, and for those tuning back in here, we stopped right kind of as you were transitioning away from the close of WCW into what would be your next run in what would become WWE. And, we touched on it a little bit, but I had Gerald Briscoe on not too long ago, Rick, and he talked to me about, like, the vibe at that final Nitro and how him and Bruce were the guys there from WWE and, how it was a really sad spot. And do you have any memories of, like, what the vibe was at, like, that final Nitro? Were you talking to Gerald and Bruce that night about what was going to be next for you at WWF after WCW had closed?
Actually not. I'd heard from Jim Ross. For me, I was just glad they were closing. So, that's not a secret. I was so happy that, finally that I wasn't happy to see anybody out of business in terms of the boys, but in terms of what WCW had become as a product, it was embarrassing to think that where we had been to be there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was glad it was over, and didn't want to see anybody lose work, of course. By that I mean, I would just look like this. I'm glad that I didn't have to be there anymore.
Okay.
That's probably better.
Okay. And so
anybody else. Because the last episode I was on prior to that, when they shaved me and my son's head, and I can just remember walking out the door, walking to the entrance position. Eric looked at me and said, "Now you gave your word." Like, okay, like I'm not going to do what I told you to do, what I would do. And that was a Vince Russo deal. I don't know what their thing was with me,
Yeah.
Like, and I tried to be Eric's friend forever. I'm real nice when I see him now. He's nice to me. He called me when my son passed away.
Yeah.
But when we were working together, I just think that he tried. It was like out of sight, out of mind. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
And he could have been getting pressure from the other guys too, and I get that. So,
okay.
But for me, it was just the last couple of years were just a very, very tough go for me personally. No, I didn't go back to WWE till 2001. I was off a whole year. I was getting paid and was going to get paid the other year when Vince called me and said, would you like to come to work? I said, God, are you kidding? Please. And so and then I started that next run. But that was November of 2001.
When you came back and were working with Vince there, how was that for you returning to WWF after taking that year away and kind of clearing your mind after WCW?
Oh God, it was absolutely fabulous. I was reignited again. Everything was great until they wanted me to wrestle again, which I was just kidding them about yesterday. I go, God, you told me I'd never have to wrestle. I'm still over here driving you crazy. He's the greatest guy. We were laughing yesterday as I'm making another exit.
Well, because you came back and like you weren't coming back as a wrestler, you were coming back to kind of do the co-owner thing with Vince McMahon, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, where I bought it from Shane. Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
It could have been cooler. I had like one day to think it over. You know, he is right. Okay, this isn't gonna be this offer's not gonna be open for long.
Because so you had talked last time we chatted about how Vince has always been by your side. So when you come back in 2001, do you have a talk with Vince? Like, what's your relationship like there? And especially since you're going into this kind of main event program with him, where you're doing this business storyline and everything.
So my relationship has always been good with him.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't think of it. I mean, he has pulled me aside and given me lectures that I needed to have at the time. He's been my friend. I mean, I can't say enough about him. Even last night, he just, he's just an unbelievable human being. And I know he likes to have the persona, or the persona is that he's a very tough and sensitive guy. He has to be tough. He has to be insensitive sometimes when it comes to business. But if you're his friend, I mean, there's nothing he won't do for you. I mean, I've experienced it personally, and I know that from hearing other stories.
How was it working with Vince as a performer? Like, you're a prolific talker, and I mean, you're doing this whole thing with Vince here, and you've watched Vince, the character. Yeah.
Yeah, so is he. He's a great. I mean, you look at Stephanie. I mean, to me, I know that they. I think the feeling is they might have run too long with it, but that authority thing, I love that. I mean, the stuff that she did with Stephanie was my favorite character on the show for years. Aside from my daughter, but that stuff was, Vicky Guerrero and with The Rock and all the stuff she's done, and I mean, to be the daughter of this guy who didn't do anything except announce until he became a character himself. He became, forget about Vince the promoter, he was a great character. The Austin, Vince McMahon stuff, I mean, I don't think has ever been anything better. I don't think so. If there has, and I'm just watching it from afar because I really wasn't there.
Yeah, I was about to say, you're on the competition watching the Monday Night War play out. That's got to be wild.
Yeah, I loved it. I was pulling for WWE every day. Okay. Yeah, I certainly wasn't part of the WCW. They were ixnaying me left and right. Not they. I was being whoever just wanted to keep me out of it. I mean, you talk about things that push people over the edge.
Sure.
So do you remember Halloween Havoc where it was me and Sting? I talked Sting into being my partner.
Yes.
Against Arn and Brian Pillman.
Yes, of course, yeah.
We did a fabulous turn where Sting tagged me and I came rolling and turned around, punched him, we beat the crap out of him, right?
Yeah.
What was the most exciting part of the show? You can look back at the show. It was unbelievable. It was in Detroit. The next night we're in Jacksonville, Florida. I'm booked against Sting. He beats me. Arn feeds in. He beats Arn. Right?
Yep.
Walk in the dressing room, and here's Eric running around. Sting's back. God damn, that was great. We did a hell of a match. It was phenomenal. Arn feeds in. They beat Arn too, and that's why I'm saying that I'm sure he got tired of that. And Eric didn't say one word to me and Arn. Like, God, what a great match, man. That was cool. Nothing. Sting's back. That was it.
Yeah. Well, happier places on the horizon then once you got back to WWF, I'd imagine then.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at Arn. I'm going, Jesus. I don't know why you had to come in and feed too, but that's what they asked for. I mean, I'm sure he got disgusted with it. It just, I think just being around me, it was like, it just like I said, when I got divorced, I feel like Arn, I was toxic and I was making bad decisions. The next two marriages that I don't begrudge, anybody, protecting themselves and their marriage and all that. And that being around Ric Flair was like, people, I think women still hate their husbands out with me at 72 or on the road. Who you with? I'm with Rick. Oh God. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
What are we doing, right?
Sure.
But I was just toxic, and I was making one bad decision after another. and I can't look back and say that it was anybody else's fault but my own. I got married and divorced twice again in less than 3 years. I only lived with my wife 3 months on the third one. On the fourth one. And Tiffany I was with for 2 years. But I just wasn't in a good place. Unhappy with myself. I couldn't make the adjustment after leaving wrestling. And I was making money no matter what. And then all of a sudden I needed more money because of the lawyers and divorces. There's no way that you can be paying alimony to 3 women at one time.
It's a lot of money, Rick.
Huh?
It's a lot of money, Rick.
Yeah. Not to mention the attorney fees. That was a lot of money. So then I went back to work, and the TNA thing. Well,
here, wait. So let's slow down here just a little bit, Rick, because I do want to kind of hit more points of your career, because you came back to WWF, and you said to me just a moment ago, and we'll get to the TNA stuff here in a second, but you said to me that Vince told you weren't going to have to wrestle again. How did it wind up that you wound up becoming a regular performer again in the first place after you came back to WWF?
Well, I was back, and let me see. I came back in November, I think. You can double check it. In November, and I want to think like in December, Shane came up to me and said, "What do you think about wrestling at the Royal Rumble?" And I said, "Wrestling who?" And he said, "My dad." I said, "What? Are you kidding?" And I said, "No, I'm not. I couldn't talk fast enough trying to get out of it, right?"
Okay.
I'm not. You guys know that, right? So I went into the office to plead my case. It felt 7 years, and there I was. But when I look back at that match, it was horrible because of me. I should have made the whole thing just so much better. God, I can look back at countless things from that time frame that if I had just felt a little better about myself. If you look at the guys I'm in the ring with, Hunter, Randy, Dave, and me, right?
Evolution,
you got
totally
all 3 like world-class bodies. Cosmetically, just you couldn't have had 3 better-looking guys, and then you got me. I don't know whether it was a good deal or a rib, but it worked, and it was fun, and they were great guys, and they, just like Sean, they carried me. I did better in tag matches, but I just, I can't honestly tell you, Nick, that I ever totally got it back.
Yeah. When do you think you lost? When do you think you lost it? When do you think it broke for you then? If you feel like you did lose it, when do you think you lost it?
Oh, they broke me. Herb broke me for about 6 months. Then that was a very easy fix. But when you just get, you're just put in a situation one after another where you're just, if it was Sting, I could always go out and wrestle Sting. If it was Hulk, I could always go out and wrestle Hulk. But it just got worse going down the line, you know what I mean? And it got more diluted, and we were just literally, we were just cannon fodder. What was one of the greatest legacies in the history of the business, the Four Horsemen, was reduced to nothing, and it didn't have to end like that. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, the wrestling fans from that era, they're still scratching their head over it. We earned our place, and we earned our right to be acknowledged and remembered. Like people still raise the 4 fingers everywhere I go, right? But we do the Four Horsemen, Rick. For pictures and that. So it obviously meant something to a lot of people at one time.
Yeah, for sure.
And I honestly believe, Nick, had we been, even remotely marketed, which they didn't know how to do back then. Of course, Vince did, but we didn't. That Four Horsemen thing would have rivaled. It wouldn't have done Steve Austin merchandise, but it would have done well because we were over.
And like that's interesting to hear you say, because Evolution kind of obviously a lot of people make comparisons between Evolution and the Horsemen, and Evolution really did get the Vince McMahon treatment and did get to push a lot of merchandise, and it was a very different kind of vehicle for you. I mean, is that an accurate thing to say about what the group was?
Oh yeah, God, just fabulous guys. I mean, Randy and Dave coming in so young. I mean, I see Randy all the time now.
Yeah,
that was 21 years ago. Is that not amazing?
It's amazing, Rick, considering especially the work that you and Randy are still doing together. That's what's so crazy to me.
Yeah, how fun is that? We called his dad the other day together.
Oh,
so,
did you?
Yeah, I mean, you have to know that this is another thing that puts heat on. Number one, to still be on TV, that's heat. And then to be the father of the greatest female wrestler of all time. That's really heat. with other fathers. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah, there's always going to be that. Not certainly from Bob Orton or Randy's dad, but I'm talking about, guys from my era, or, that, have children if they do in similar situations.
Okay.
But she demonstrated again last night how great she is, God. So she doesn't need my help. I just want to hang around.
I mean, I don't want to jump ahead, Rick, but I mean, if you want to break it up, we can touch on it real quick. I mean, how was that for you, man? I mean, having your daughter cut a promo on you, and it was pretty stiff, man. I mean, from a performance perspective.
She said what she felt, and that's what made it real.
Man.
Because, it's how many really think about it, how many people have their 72-year-old or 71-year-old father hanging around all the time? Nobody. He's sick of it too. Hey, I left home when I was 15 and never reported back in. I can't imagine having my dad walking around. It's great. I mean, I'm so proud of her, and she's just, and you can throw this in wherever you want to. I didn't mean to bring up that, but
yeah, sure, whatever.
It kind of just goes along with what we're talking about. So, yeah. Anyway, getting back to 2001. So then I went to the Royal Rumble, and we had a match, and it was passable, I guess, not nearly as good as it could have been, not because of him, but because of me. And then, of course, it was Hunter came to me with the idea of Evolution, and boom, and then it was, I can't remember exactly. Was Evolution before or after Taker?
Man, that's a great question. I think before.
18.
Yeah.
WrestleMania 18 was that next? Yeah, that's the next year.
WrestleMania 18, and I think that's why I got my WrestleMania's cattywampus earlier, was because it was WrestleMania 18, not 17. Yeah.
Yeah, so WrestleMania 18 was in 2002.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
Is that right?
WrestleMania 17 was 2001, and so WrestleMania 18 would have been 2002, and that's the whole Croc year, I believe. Yeah.
2002 was the Rumble. Then it's Taker. The Taker became before Evolution.
Yeah. Yes, that's right, because 18 was when you fought Taker, and then Evolution was after. Correct.
That's what Mark carried me, but we did have a hell of a match. I eventually got comfortable, and that turned out to be a hell of a match, I think. I mean, everybody liked it. Once again, I'm 59 in 2008, so I was, in 2002, I'm 54? I don't know, but we did have a hell of a match, and it was just great. And, Mark, once again, Mark carried me. And we've discussed this because after the last ride, he talks about he had some insecurities too. His were, around his physical. He'd had health problems like bad back and stuff like that, which caused him to be insecure. Mine was all mental, but we share that in common. Self-confidence, whether it's your body holding up or your mind and being able to do it and perform at the level that everybody thinks you can, It doesn't matter how many times Hunter will say to me, or did, God damn it, you're Ric Flair. Go out there and just relax, be yourself. It goes in one ear and it goes out the other. I mean, you shake your head and go yes, and then you walk through the curtain and it's just not there. And I think that is just due to being beaten down for so long.
Yeah.
But I still really enjoyed it at the time, and such great guys, Randy, Dave, Hunter. I mean, geez, how cool is that, right?
Did you always know Randy would kind of get to where he is now? I mean, you worked with him when he was super young. I think he only won the title when he was like 23, 22, 23, something like that.
Yeah, I thought Randy was going to be a big star for me. I thought Dave was too. Dave got held back by injuries. Not held back by injuries, but I mean, Dave got injured 2 or 3 times during that run. But when we were all together, I thought it was just a stellar look, and everybody was wearing suits, and they shot vignettes of us getting off helicopters and going to bars, and just what every marriage needs.
Well, how was it partying and hanging out with Evolution at that time? Was it like the good old days, or was it a little bit more tempered? Or
Randy, Hunter didn't drink at all.
Right.
So I drink, and Hunter would eat a steak. Randy doesn't drink much at all, maybe a couple of drinks. Dave, I would get to drag out, Dave would come out once in a while, but those guys were so, what's the word I'm looking for? So,
healthy?
Attentive to their, you know what I mean?
Okay.
That, the drinking thing, it just was starting to wind down then with the guys. And those guys put so much time in the gym, to look like that, you have to work hard. And the drinking really wasn't part of it. But I got them all out at one time or another. Not Hunter. Hunter, I think I've seen Hunter have one glass of wine.
Yeah.
It was that Hunter would spend more money on food at the bar than I would on booze.
He's a big guy. So, I mean, you need that.
The guy could eat 6 New York strips a day. I'm not kidding you. A day.
So, this was a great run for you, obviously, with Evolution. And then, before you would wind up, kind of heading off to TNA, of course, you had your big retirement match with Shawn. We're in your yeah, we're in the, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'd say the retirement was second to none.
Yeah.
The next night on Raw, my God. I didn't even know about that. They called me. I was leaving for the airport. They said, you're supposed to be at Raw. I said, Raw? I'm going home. No, you're at Raw tonight. So I got there, and God, what a wonderful, wonderful surprise, right? I mean, I've been watching TV for a long time. Who's ever had that?
Yeah.
And then, only me and my personal problems with myself, brought on by myself, could screw that up. But I think it's been forgiven now, and the TNA has been forgiven. And, once again, those guys were great guys at TNA. Anything I did in the ring, I certainly had help from AJ and Storm and Rude and those guys. And Jay Lethal was awesome, but I didn't have it mentally. It was just a vehicle to make some money. And I was really going through some tough times then with my 4th marriage was just, my wife went to jail and all kinds of stuff. But it took its toll on me, and it for some reason, and I found my way back, but it wasn't without, that's the part I'm always going to wonder about, how much hurt I brought, on Reed and Ashley. I don't know. That's something that, like I told you yesterday, I have to live with. I feel like I never can justify anything in terms of my personal conduct, but I feel like that nothing would have changed with Reed. I think that was an issue that, I told you yesterday.
Sure.
If I go back to the origin of it, I was still married then, and the first time I sensed any problem. And then private school for the issues to continue up there, you know, far away from where I thought the problems were. And then, you know, 5 years of 5 years of rehabilitation off and on, and, you know, more love than any family could give, you know, a young man. And like I said, all he wanted to do was work out, eat healthy, read Hunter's book, go to the matches with me. I mean, I traveled the world with him. I took him to Japan. I took him to Europe. He won the All Kids Nationals Japan, 4-time national champion, AAU, USA. I mean, phenomenal athlete, everything. And I just, you know, I wonder if I didn't push too hard maybe with that, trying to get control of life and making him go to wrestling camps and stuff like that. Like I did with Ashley, you know, you're always as a father, you're going to wonder if if you push too hard. My focus wasn't the academics, but mine was to make sure that they got everything they could, because I did recognize how much talent they both had. And I didn't have that opportunity with my older kids, because that's when I was gone every day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'm with the TNA stuff and just kind of and I don't know exactly the full extent of the circumstances here, and you've been very open about a lot of it. But I mean, do you feel like you could have maybe worked harder to stay with WWE and make a deal there, or was a deal not possible considering your circumstances and the leap to TNA was a necessity? I mean, looking back on that, do you feel like you could have done more to maybe keep that WWE relationship stronger and stay with the company?
Well, you mean stay with the company? And do PR in that, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Instead of going to TNA and having to wrestle McFoley and doing all the other crazy things you did in TNA.
Yeah, but I could have stayed with the company most certainly, but not made that kind of money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I made really good money at TNA.
Yeah. Okay.
And they weren't going to pay me that kind of money what am I trying to say? To do PR, and I was with them for a little while, but it just, you know, it's hard to say. I that time right there, I think that they just, you know, they saw that I was in a bad place too, and didn't leave me by any means. They've never left me. I just think I needed to get away, because it's unless you lived in that time frame with. I mean, it was just every day it was something else with women.
Yeah.
Not with health issues or anything, but I just couldn't. You know, I was so confused, and like I said, paying alimony to 3 people. Wow. I mean, just trying to cover this and cover that and cover this, and you know, still have any kind of a life. And then, of course, the only way to get over that day or that moment was to do what? To drink. So, yeah, I don't think it wouldn't have been a good idea to keep me around there.
Okay. And so you get to TNA, you get to TNA then, and now you've got a new boss in Dixie Carter. What was it like working for Dixie? How was she as like a boss promoter, in your opinion?
As a person, she was fabulous.
Yeah.
But I think Dixie, you know, the problem with Dixie is she just wanted everybody to do so well. And that the people that actually ran the financial part of it, from behind the scenes, I can't think of the guy's name, Brogdon or something like that.
Okay.
But, you know, Dixie would say one thing, you'd go to him, and he'd say absolutely not. You know, and for me, you know, I needed money, and I asked for it, and they just, you know, I've never been in a position where I was owed guaranteed money and couldn't get a draw, so I got frustrated. But, you know, at the end of the day, I blame myself for that too. But I did meet some nice people. I got to meet AJ, who I see now regularly.
Oh, yeah.
James, Bobby Roode, Jay Lethal, who I think the world of. And Dixie was nice. She came to Reed's funeral. You know, and I think I think I've said before that it was just disorganized. I mean, you got Bruce Pritchard, who, you can't find a much smarter guy than Bruce. And even Bruce got frustrated. I mean, you know what I mean? It was just different. And then, of course, along came my nemesis, Vince Russo. So, yeah, I mean, from the time I signed up for one thing and ended up with another.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Oh, totally. I mean, that was such a hodgepodge of crazy people at that time.
My first day I got there, they said, we want Abyss to win your Hall of Fame ring.
I remember this. Yeah.
Huh?
I remember this. I totally remember this.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he wound up with Hulks or something like that, I think, or whatever.
Yeah. And first of all, I've become really good friends with Chris. He's a great guy. It's not about a Chris or Abyss. It's just the idea. So what are we doing with the Hall of Fame ring? It's just a Russo deal. It is. I mean, you know they buried me in the desert, right?
I recall you being buried in the desert. We've spoken about you being buried in the desert and how ridiculous that was. Yes.
Yeah, but what did that accomplish? If you really think about it, what did that accomplish?
I don't know. That's where the story ends for me. Is you got buried in the desert, and I remember nothing of the follow up to that.
We drove 50 miles out of Vegas to bury me in the desert.
That's terrifying.
And then 2 weeks later, they wanted me to come back to TV.
It's like a ghost or something. I think you maybe told me or something at some point. I forget exactly what it was. I don't know.
No, but Russo's explanation was that, you were going to leave you and Hulk out here or do something, and then when you come back, you'll mean so much more. That's how you think it is. I mean, at that point, I was exhausted. I thought I was getting away from it all. But once again, the only thing I could do was go to the hotel and drink with the guys. So, and there were at TNA, there were some wonderful guys. I mean, Bubba, Devon was there. Bubba and Devon, and it certainly wasn't any problem I had with the people that were working there by any means.
Okay.
It was just my own stuff.
And so in 2012, there was like some negotiating, I believe, to get you away from TNA. Like Christian Cage wound up appearing on TNA, and then I think you kind of moved over to WWE. I don't know. Enlighten me a bit about exactly how you transitioned away from TNA back to WWE.
Well, here's what happened, which was so annoying. 2012 came, and they wanted to put us in the Horsemen in the Hall of Fame.
Correct.
So I called Johnny Ace, and Johnny Ace called me and said, we want to duck you in the Hall of Fame, but we have to get permission from Dixie Carter. So this is how strange it is. And this kind of stuff I do find fault with, right? So instead of just saying, yeah, Rick can go and get inducted in the Hall of Fame, it became a massive issue. And I've said this before, and I mean this. So when I'm telling you all the time that I was happy with them, I'm really not giving you the straight up and down on that, because using this one example, if you have someone on your roster that's going to be inducted in the WWE Hall of Fame for the second time, which is unheard of at this point in time, why not just let them go? But it became a huge deal. They wanted someone back. They wanted to trade out that moment. And that moment isn't something to negotiate by trade. You just say, Rick, go get your Hall of Fame ring, come back. You mean more to us on our next show. Does that make sense?
And I'm surprised because, you like you start off saying, Dixie seemed like a nice person. I don't understand why that would be the move in this situation.
Well, I don't know that Dixie has made that call.
Okay.
I know when I came back, she was very gracious and said how cool it was in front of everybody. But it became a logistical nightmare. I think I'm not sure if Christian had to do something, and I don't think Christian showed up for it. I can't remember what the trade-out was.
I think he came back for one night, and I'm testing myself here, but like I think what it was, because he had been in TNA, and then I think when he had gone back to WWF,
yeah.
And he came back for one night at like a pay-per-view. I don't even know if he wrestled. I think he may have just appeared and said something. I'm not 100% clear, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that was the trade out, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
I don't, but somehow it didn't work out to their satisfaction. But no, I came back and Dixie put me over, but it was like I didn't know I was going till the night before. It was that close.
Wow.
You know, and of course I was ready to quit. You know what I mean? But if it was my understanding that if I quit, they would have held me up legally. So, you know, it just is strange. The whole thing was strange.
Huh. Bizarre.
Well, yeah, once again, and that wouldn't have been putting the product over. It's just having someone on the roster with those kind of accolades. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
That it was an interesting time because, like, at that point, they still kind of thought they could be competition. I feel like because they had tried the Monday night thing out that didn't quite work, but they were still. I mean, they were still doing fairly big shows. I'd go to shows here in Chicago, and there were definitely crowds.
Oh yeah, well I can't. I've never kept track of that. I know that we did. Yeah, some buildings were good. Yeah, it's funny. It just seems like so long ago. And actually, it was. What's been 12 years now, or 10 years?
Yeah, about 10 years.
Yeah. I just found it so strange that they have us out signing autographs for the show and all that, all together. The people that were wrestling each other. I guess I'd been WWE so long that I just couldn't possibly. I just couldn't accept that, and I made it. First time he asked me to do it, which I didn't even know anything about. I said to the guy, "Listen, when you get Shawn Michaels and Undertaker out here signing, I'll sign." It didn't even work for us, but I mean, I just couldn't. And then at the end of the match, think about this. This is a company that's trying to compete with the WWE. They would have the two people that worked against each other stay in the ring and take pictures and sign autographs for an hour for $25 a piece.
That's what we do at the Indies.
Yeah, I know. That's the point I'm making.
Yes, no.
So when you say that they were competing they were competing to compete with the WWE, or trying to compete with the WWE. I mean that doesn't even fit me in the equation.
Whether or not they were competing, I think in their heads, I think maybe a little bit they were still in competition, if that makes sense, and that's why they were taking you so seriously in that moment. So
it could be.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to try to dive into that psyche. Anyway, you wind up away from TNA, back in WWE, and there was a time there when you came back where you were briefly mentoring The Miz, and I remember this all very vividly at the time because this was not critically, I think, well received, but I've always been a big Miz fan. I just kind of wondered what it was like for you to come back and get paired with this guy and have to work and try. I mean, his figure 4 was sloppy, all this kind of stuff that came up at the time.
Well, I have nothing but respect for him. I like. He is a guy that's come up and been, people have been. I'm trying to. I don't know how to put it with him. He is incredibly passionate about this business, and he cares so much. And they even watched him last night walking around talking to himself for a half hour, preparing for the interview. And I know that he's had, obstacles here. He's overcome them all. He's happily married. He's got 2 kids. And, I mean, there's always going to be a place for a guy like him because he's just that good a guy. And the thing that I tell a lot of people is that if you can take all the stuff that they give you and somehow turn it into something that becomes entertaining, something that you can make entertaining, even if you don't like it, you'll be here forever. Because they're not going to hand you the boat every day. Does that make sense?
Sure.
There are going to be days where they're going to say, I need you to do this. You're going to go, I can't do that. Find a way to do it.
Or you're gone, right? Yeah.
Well, you're not gone, but I mean, it's just, why not? I mean, he made all this money, not he, they, and they're asking you to do something, and, you know, it took me forever to get used to it, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But once I did, like, you know, put me in the insane asylum at WCW. We didn't even bring that one up yet, right?
No, we have. I mean, Rick, I'm trying to do the hits here. We could bring you back, and we could go through every little fun little story you've ever done, because there are a lot of storylines you've been involved in that I'd love to dive in more to.
How crazy is that, right?
Yeah, no, that's pretty. I mean, that's actually crazy. That's insane.
Yeah, I'm a 16-time world champion, right? So is that someone's attempt to bury me, or is that just what did we accomplish with that?
I don't know, man. I don't know.
So I'm asking you. What did we accomplish?
It's like the buried in the desert thing. You know, it's like anything that's just like a fun little gimmick or whatever that pops up with no forethought about where it goes from there. You know, it's like, again, like you go to an insane asylum, that's kind of where that story begins and ends for me. I don't really have a whole lot of thoughts about it.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying, what did it do for me?
Nothing.
Yeah. And, you know, with Harley Race in one, Terry Funk in one, that's where I'm going with it.
Ken Shamrock wore the straight jacket, and it made a lot of sense.
Kenny.
Anyway.
One thing, running around with what they call her, AAA or whatever the girl's name was.
Oh, okay.
The nurse.
So as you're coming back in 2012 back to the fold, this is around the same time Charlotte starts to take an interest in joining WWE, and I believe does start making her first steps into WWE, correct?
She came to the Hall of Fame with me, yeah. She came to the Hall of Fame. We both, you know, no matter where I've been or what I've done, I've been talking to her every day of my life. As I did all of my kids one time. I don't know if you ever saw you know, you look back on things, and they had a panel after my 30 for 30 aired in New York with Foley, Hunter, my daughter, Peter, you know, the radio disc jockey, Peter.
Peter Rosenberg.
Peter Rosenberg, yeah. So, did you ever see that panel?
I don't know
where Foley talked about me calling my kids and all that every day?
I don't know that I did.
Okay, well, you can look at it. It's a panel discussing, you know, what they thought of the 30 for 30 and what it meant, and, you know, got kind of an in-depth evaluation of me as a person. And Foley told that story where that they saw that we were sitting next to each other, and then someone said to me or to Foley, "Do you want to sit somewhere else?" Because they thought there was so much animosity with he and I. And I ended up sitting down. I didn't even think about it. You know, once something's over, it's over. And Foley told a story where I called all my kids, and he felt bad because he thought he was the all-time father. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But I've always called all my kids. I did for years before I took off. You know, because you just never know. You know, when you're not going to be able to do it. But I look back on stories like that, and I say, well, you know, I couldn't have been that bad a father. Maybe I'm too hard on myself.
Sure.
You know, this is pretty in-depth stuff, but this all goes hand in hand with my coming back to WWE, you know?
Yeah.
Coming back to work there in 2001 state. And then they couldn't do any more for me. I had that rough time, but then I came back around, and here I am now, finally, in the best place I've ever been in my life.
Yeah, and that's been the story here since you came back in 2012. You know, we talked about the Miz stuff, but you watching your daughter kind of come up here and now getting to work. Yeah, I mean, first of all...
One second. Venti Dark Rose, please.
No problem. You catching a car somewhere right now? I think we're all wondering.
I'm sorry, Nick. What?
No. You're good. You catching a car right now?
No. I'm just getting my coffee.
Oh, well, then regular. That makes sense. I had my coffee already. No, I was just asking you. I mean, because you say this is a very different run where you come back and like, yeah, you're an on-screen character, but now there's like this family element to you where like you're getting to support and be around your daughter, and I'm sure you could sit here and talk to me an hour just about like that experience alone. But I mean, how has that been for you? This is a very different run you've had with WWF since 2012 than you've had it really kind of, it seems, any other company in your career.
I mean, like, now give me the time frame. Since the Royal Rumble, you mean, or
no, just
in
in
the last
general.
couple of years?
Yeah, just in the last 8-9 years. I mean, from the moment Charlotte kind of walked into PC, I mean, she's got to be in your ear asking for advice. I mean, you're going through the highs and lows with her of what it is to be a superstar at that level. I mean, that's got to be a pretty wild ride for you.
Well, what happened? I was going through all this stuff, and I had made up my mind I wasn't going to go back to my wife. And I just left town without telling. She was wanted to go, and I had just given up on that. And I just left, and she wanted to go. Of course, Reed always wanted to go. And we got down there, and Johnny Ace, who I was sitting with, who's the head of talent relations at that time, and a very close friend of mine, looked, and he's known Ashley forever, and he said, "Why aren't you in the business?" And she looked at me, and he excused himself, and she got up and walked away, and I just kept my eyes on her, and then she was thinking to herself, and she came back around like within maybe 30 minutes at the most, and said, "Dad, you think I could do this?" And I looked at her seriously. I said, "I'm sure you'd be great at it, but do you really want to do this?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was in April for WrestleMania in Miami, and she was at the PC in July.
Wow.
Not the Performance Center. She was in Tampa with Steve Kern in July.
Okay. How was it watching her have to go through the process? Is it tough for you as like being you to not get involved and like give advice or get involved in her business?
No,
yeah.
But believe me, it's an incredible, here's my problem, and it probably isn't a fair statement, but it's worded the way I feel.
Okay.
Boys are boys. If your son wants to get in the business, that's fine. It's a guy. Your daughter, you're always going to be sensitive to what goes down. With the guy, you expect them to be able to handle it, because if that's what you're going to do, I can't control it, right? Well, with the girl, your daughter, and then you see all these different people putting up obstacles that aren't real, saying that I made it easy. She's Ric Flair's daughter. I mean, it's a real life scenario. It's what was transpired last night is really the way it and that's because they keep having me on TV. If I wasn't here, I'd be forgotten. Not forgotten, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But nothing was easier for her. It made it harder. Being my daughter made it harder for her. People are jealous. It's human nature. They're jealous. They don't want to succeed. I mean, I have friends with children. I don't think that wanted her to be. Well, nobody thought. I did. If she elected to do it, I knew she could do anything she wanted to do. But I mean, and how many families do two people, emerge to the level of success that we have? It's me with her all the time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And everybody looks at that as being the rub. And in the rub, I mean, I'm getting the rub from her now, but people don't see it like that. And it's like, God, how do I ever get away from this? And regardless of the fact that she's 10 times better than I was ever in the ring, it's still that stigma. And, someday she'll look back on it and say, God, what a great time. But I feel the pain because I'm sensitive and I'm her dad, and I want everything to be perfect. And I want her to go home at the end of the night and just relax. But she is so, to even see her, during the day, working with the other girls on the construction of whatever they're doing, or rehearsing, and she just is so intense, and just is not going to ever be satisfied, unless the result is absolutely perfect. And that is one of the reasons she's so good at what she does. The other is that she's so gifted and such a great athlete. But she takes it all, and you could tell in the ring, she just wants it to be great. So, and it is. But I just wish I could get her to understand that, she doesn't have to prove anything to anybody anymore. But every night for her is a different challenge, which is, one of the reasons she's so damn good at it.
So was you turning? Yeah, totally, 100%. And so with you turning heel on her recently, was this just kind of the next logical conclusion? You've managed her, you've been by her side for 8 years. What more is there to do with Ric Flair and Charlotte? Is that where the idea of you kind of making this kind of final creative move here happen, or what was the story behind that?
You're talking to the wrong guy. You need to get an interview with somebody in the office.
Okay.
I have no idea.
Okay.
I just got the TV and they said it to me.
Really?
I was as much in shock as you were.
Wow.
I came to a Legends reunion to be a legend. Next thing I know, I'm managing Lacey with no explanation. So, and she's such a nice girl, man, and she wanted it so bad. But life is life, and I told her I wouldn't trade out your pregnancy for the wrestling for 1 second. And I think, she was hurt a couple of days, but I think she's gone home and realized that, hey, I'm having a baby. And what really ultimately in life, is there anything bigger than family?
No, 100%. And so, how about the family? I mean, how does Wendy feel about you styling and profiling, and the implications that you're the father of this child on screen? That's pretty wild, Rick.
Yeah, well, Wendy's known me for a long time, so she's she's just, oh God, here we go again, right? That kind of, but and Wendy's wonderful. God, she's she's focused on her children now. She's back in law school, gonna take her LSAT the day of WrestleMania, which she's already passed, but she has to take it again. Her youngest one's going to Arizona State. She is such a mother's mother, and and so great to me that in terms of that being a distraction in our family, it wasn't at all. She knows me, well enough, and she knows I'm just going to work.
Yeah.
I think she and Lacey talked a couple of times, but it was all about good luck to you, and and then of course when she found out she was pregnant, it was like, boy, because Wendy would have 10 kids if she could. So it completely moved over to, hey, congratulations, which is the way it should be.
Yeah.
The young lady's pregnant and she's gonna have another child, and that daughter she has that means the world to her. I mean, they travel together and they really have a very nice family dynamic. That as it looks to me from the outside.
That's great. Well, talking about your family dynamic, you helped put Ashley over and get Charlotte to where she is now. Your son-in-law, Conrad, also in the Flair family. Man,
he is a huge, and I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to, remind you at the end. But he has done so much for me. It's kind of like I reconnected with Wendy, and then I met Conrad. And then Ashley, of course, was in the business by that time at NXT for a couple of years. But, man, from the time I met him, I took him everywhere with me.
Yeah.
And, then they wanted me to do a podcast, and I said, geez, I know I listen to them and I like them, and there is money to be made in them more now because of the YouTube and stuff and that. So, but I'm just not a good podcaster, especially you cannot give an opinion when you have someone in the business, because if you critique somebody and you're once again, you're opening up the member of your family to be criticized by their coworkers. Well, your dad's got a big mouth. He says it's that. So I basically am very careful about what I say and try to choose my words wisely. I'm not always perfect, but certainly a podcast wasn't a format. But Conrad took that, and I said, Conrad, I don't want to do it anymore. And he took it, and look where he's got now.
Yeah.
So he gave me life. I introduced him to the podcast, and then he marries my daughter. So how about that?
It seems like a fairy tale story, Rick.
It is a fairy tale story. Yeah. He helps me get back on my feet. I introduced him to regardless of the fact that he's a millionaire with his company, First Family Mortgage. He did this love with wrestling, and I took him everywhere and introduced him to everybody. And now he's supporting or not supporting, working with, some of my best friends in Jim Ross and Bruce Pritchard, and then he's working with other people. So,
well, fair enough. Not everybody has to get along with everybody, Rick. Actually.
No.
Yeah.
I got disappointments, but I can assure you, Conrad would have come to Reed's funeral.
Hey, Rick. Here's the thing. We share that sentiment.
Huh?
We share that sentiment. There are some people Conrad works with that I love, and there's the other people. I completely agree with that. So. Anyway.
Yeah, that's the truth. I love Jim Ross. I told you I got mad, about what he said, but at the end of the day, he was right.
Sure.
And he felt bad, and I said, God, Jim, what you're saying is absolutely true. I don't know how to be alone. And when I started telling you my story yesterday, it didn't start my business. From the time I could ride a bike, I was out of there.
Well, I got one last question for you here, Rick, about your career. And just as kind of, we've covered so much ground here, and I would love to have you back, and we can get into the asylum and the desert and any other many stories you like, Rick.
Well, let's do it.
Yeah, we will. But my question for you is, you look at your legacy, such a big part of it is the 16-time world champion. Now, you're tied with John Cena. He's also 16. Randy Orton, who's your protege in many ways, he's got 14. Do you think that number should be broken? And if it is to be broken, do you think it is one of those two guys that takes 17 time?
I think every record's meant to be broken, number one.
Okay.
I couldn't be prouder. I think the world of them both. To be honest with you, and I'd like to see my daughter break it. And you know what? Those are Randy Orton's sentiment to me too. She's just she's 3 away.
Yeah, let me look it up here real quick. Now I'm interested.
Yeah. Well, she's 12-time plus.
Let's see.
The world tag. That's 13.
One time Diva, 4-time Raw, 5 times SmackDown. So she's at 10 world titles right now in WWE.
And the Diva champion, too.
Yeah, well, that was with the Divas. I count 4 Raw, 5 SmackDown, 1 Divas. Oh, and then 2 NXT NXT women's titles. So that puts it at 12. Yeah. Okay.
So, who knows? It's funny because I would love to see Randy break it. John, I certainly wouldn't be opposed to John break it, but I think the person that breaks it needs to be a full-time performer. Does that make sense?
Totally, 100%.
And schedule. Just because I think it's better for the company. Not that it matters who the individual is, but I think it's if it took 20 years, I figured it out. I got all 16 of them in 20 years, right? And they didn't count the one with Sting and some of the other stuff we did. But yeah, it was just, it's hard to imagine, but I can see both John, Randy, or Charlotte doing it.
Man,
I think that I see so many. Like I will say to her sometimes, there are so many big matches between her. There's another huge match with her and Sasha. Another huge match with her and Bianca Belair. Another huge match with her and Rhea Ripley. Another huge match. I mean, it just if they have the time and they certainly have the chemistry if they have the opportunity to build those. I mean, that's just to name a couple. I mean, Ashley will be the best at this as long as she wants to be. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Health, health being a big factor. Because health can be, you need to stay in good health and stay in great shape. And what she does, you can't take days off. So Randy had some injuries that he's come back. Those shoulders have held up for him. There was a time, I think, where they were career-threatening injuries, his shoulder. But he's been great. He's healthy. He takes good care of himself. And John, of course, is a physical specimen, second to none, as I think of Ashley. So, any of the three works for me.
All right. And Rick, I think that's like a wonderful final point. I mean, we started talking about your childhood. We ended here talking about where you're at with your legacy at the moment and how you see your legacy going forward, man. And again, I know we did like a 10,000-foot view of 40 plus years in the business, 72 years on Earth. But I mean, what a talk, man. What 2.5 hours here.
Well, yeah. Let me know what you think about that. It'll be. Let me see. I've got to live until September of 22. That'd be 50 years for me in the business.
Wow.
50. I mean, I talked to Lawler when I saw that Jerry was 50, and Jerry had gotten. I got a scholarship, of course, to play football. Jerry had gotten one, which I didn't realize, but I believe it. He's so gifted to art school. But he skipped it. He's completely completely left that behind to get into wrestling. That's how he's been in it longer than me, because we're the same age. But I mean, it just be 50 years in this business and be able to talk, be coherent, to have a guy of your stature and prestige in the business call me for an interview. I mean, life doesn't get much better. Go home to my beautiful wife, see that my daughters are happy, and Wendy's children, who are like my children now, to see them all happy, successful. How much better life does it get than that?
Rick, I'll ask you one more time here. The last couple times I've interviewed you, there's one way I like to end the interviews with you, and that is to say, is there a chance we could just kind of woo here to wrap up the interview back and forth? Is that okay?
Woo!
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 Woo! Woo!